What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to The Order. The key to any successful live service title lies in the end game. After you've completed the main story campaign, what exactly is there for you to do with your characters? What is going to incentivize you to keep playing that game? Any game that aims to keep you playing day in and day out will sink or swim based on how good that end game loop really is. Many failed live service games have died off because of their inability to provide their player base with a sufficient amount of things to do past the story. I say this all to say there's a lot at stake for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, as it enters into a crowded live service marketplace where the demand for a quality endgame experience has never been higher. And with so many games having flopped in this genre over the past few years, there's a lot of pressure to deliver on expectations for consistent content updates. So what exactly will endgame look like in Suicide Squad? Thankfully, we finally got some answers on that in the form of a developer Q&A via the game's official Discord server, and I wanted to go over some of the details and maybe a few things you might have missed. Now, before we get into it, we need to define first what makes a good endgame for a game like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This is a pretty lofty topic, but to keep it simple, I really think a good endgame experience boils down to four essential pillars. Does the game allow you to level and develop your characters past the level cap, and what does that progression look like? Does the game offer a wide variety of difficulties and challenging content that feel dynamic and fulfilling? Is that sweet loot worth grinding through those activities for? And does that loot encourage you to push forward to the next activity? And lastly, does the game foster a sense of community and competition that keeps you coming back for more? These are the things I was looking forward to hearing about most, and I believe the keys to whether or not this game will have the legs to succeed as a live service game. With that being said, let's dive into the Q&A itself. One of the most fascinating reveals during the session was the announcement of the Social Squad feature, something that was actually listed within this closed alpha. Essentially, with Social Squad, if you're playing solo, you have the ability to run with AI versions of your own squad members or squad members from other players, complete with their builds and loadouts. This also includes players who aren't your friends, as you'll be able to pull the builds of characters from the in-game leaderboard. Not to mention, when players use the Social Squad feature to borrow your squad members for a mission or two, you will receive rewards back from their sessions. That is so cool. Oh yeah, about that leaderboard. Suicide Squad features a global leaderboard system that will track in-game performance from players throughout the world. While the game is entirely PvE for now, this leaderboard aims to add a little bit of competition and incentivize players to maximize their skills, damage, and mission-to-mission production. This is a pretty cool idea and will help feed into the endgame loop we'll talk about more in a second, but a sense of competition amongst players will likely do wonders to help keep the game alive, as the leaderboard chase should encourage folks to keep grinding to improve their characters and subsequently their performance. Now, improving those characters past the level cap is, again, one of those central pillars of any good endgame, and this was addressed during the Q&A. Squad talents represent Suicide Squad's endgame leveling system past the level cap. Once you hit level 30 on a character, you'll unlock the ability to earn squad level points to spend on upgrades that will benefit all of your characters. Squad talents are said to be infinite and focus on broader buffs to weapons and overall gameplay, allowing you to fine-tune your entire team well past that level cap. And with the ability to respec these points at any time, it'll allow players the ability to fine-tune these upgrades as they enter increasingly challenging endgame activities. Having a good post-level cap progression system is a must at endgame, and it sounds like Suicide Squad will give us just that right at launch. We'll have to see just what these squad talent skills and buffs look like, but at the very least, there's built-in incentive to keep farming for experience even after hitting max level on your characters. This appears to be a huge theme of Rocksteady's approach to endgame, as elaborated upon later in the discussion. The philosophy seems to be all about giving you a path to continuously advancing your characters to take on ever-evolving challenges. Speaking of which, we also learned about two of those challenges in the form of encouragement incursion missions, and killing time. Killing time missions appear to be Suicide Squad's take on a horde mode, as you and your teammates work against the clock to fend off an army of Brainiac's forces. Incursion missions sound like they may be a mix of an arena or tower style combat mission with a bit of a cinematic flair. Very eager to hear a bit more on how this one works. And if that weren't enough, we got this image at the end of the Q&A, which appears to be hinting at some sort of Joker themed event or tower that looks to be a part of the game's post-launch plans. Again, the philosophy throughout the Q&A was pretty clear. Suicide Squad aims to give you increasingly challenging missions after the story that ramp up the difficulty and demand that you keep working to improve your characters. And yes, there is a reward for doing all of this. It wouldn't be a looter shooter without the loot chase after all. So there's infamy gear, exotic level weapons that are themed after specific DC villains and come with their own unique perks and gear set benefits that will come to greatly define each character's build. These are certainly shaping up to be inarguably the most desirable items in the game and worthy of the endgame grind. As I take a step back and look at all of this, I have to give Rocksteady some credit. While there's still a ton of details I want to know, like what about gear farming, target farming, repeatable boss missions, all of that, it does appear that a lot of the hallmarks of a solid endgame experience are in place. The sense of character progression, rewarding loot, leaderboards, social features to foster that sense of community amongst the players. The question that remains, however, for me is, will the in-game content actually be fun to consistently grind? One particular quote about the backbone of the mission design leaning towards being a more predictable experience leads me to thinking that the approach to these endgame activities will be more rinse and repeat than dynamic as you grind your way through them. My only hope is that this doesn't just end up feeling like an endless treadmill of ever-increasing health pools and damage numbers within missions that don't really deviate from one another, and that the content and mission design have enough spontaneity to consistently feel fresh day in and day out. This to me will be the deciding factor on whether or not Suicide Squad will be able to hold up long term as an ongoing multiplayer game. Everything hinges on the endgame feeling like a worthy endgame. What detail from this dev Q&A most stood out to you, and what is the thing you are most looking forward to when it comes to the endgame experience in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? If you found this video helpful or insightful at all, be sure to hit it with a like and subscribe to the channel for more gaming coverage and insight. Until next time, have a good one.